Overthinking, right? This is one of the biggest problems today, and almost nobody gives a real solution. This audiobook will give you everything you need to know about overthinking and how to beat it. Give me 49 minutes of your time, and I will show you, step by step, how to stop the loop that steals your confidence, ruins chances, and destroys your peace. You'll learn why your mind traps you, the small daily actions that break that trap, and a simple plan you can use every day. No long theory, no soft advice, just real things you can do right now. If you are tired of doubt and ready to change, press play. Give me 49 minutes and I'll help you take your life back.
Chapter 1. The prison you built in your own mind. You're trapped, not by circumstance, not by other people, but by your own thoughts. Every day, you wake up and immediately begin the same exhausting process. You replay yesterday's conversations, searching for mistakes you might have made. You imagine tomorrow's scenarios, catastrophizing outcomes that will probably never happen. You analyze, dissect, and torture yourself with questions that have no answers. This is not careful thinking. This is not intelligence. This is a prison, and you are both the architect and the inmate. Overthinking is the silent disease of the modern age. It masquerades as conscientiousness, as being thoughtful, as simply processing. But make no mistake, it is slowly destroying your ability to live. While you're trapped in endless mental loops, your actual life is passing you by. Opportunities expire while you're still weighing the pros and cons. Relationships deteriorate while you're analyzing what someone might have meant by their tone. Moments that could have been meaningful disappear into the void because you were too busy thinking about them instead of experiencing them. Your brain has become your worst enemy. It runs the same scenarios on repeat, like a broken record you can't turn off. You think about the email you need to send, but instead of sending it, you spend an hour rewriting it in your head. You want to have a difficult conversation, but you rehearse it so many times that you never actually have it. You need to make a decision, but you're so terrified of making the wrong choice that you make no choice at all. This is the paralysis of overthinking, and it is costing you everything. The cruelest part is that you believe you're being productive. You feel busy because your mind is constantly working. But this work produces nothing. It's mental masturbation, intense activity with no real result. You're not solving problems, you're creating them. You're not preparing for the future, you're stealing from the present. Every minute spent in your head is a minute stolen from your life, and you will never get those minutes back. Most people don't even realize they're doing it. Overthinking has become so normalized, so ingrained in their daily routine that it feels like just part of who they are. I'm a worrier, they say, as if it's a personality trait rather than a destructive habit. I just think a lot, they explain, as if there's virtue in drowning in analysis. But there's nothing admirable about living in a constant state of mental warfare with yourself. There's nothing noble about being so trapped in your own head that you can't function in reality. Here's what you need to understand. Your overthinking is not keeping you safe. It's not preventing disaster. It's not making you more prepared. It's doing the exact opposite. It's keeping you small, keeping you stuck, keeping you from the life you could be living. While you're busy imagining everything that could go wrong, everything that could go right is passing you by. While you're rehearsing conversations in your mind, real connections are waiting to be made. While you're analyzing yourself into paralysis, other people no smarter or more capable than you, are taking action and building the lives you only think about. The prison exists because you keep building it. Every time you choose to ruminate instead of act, you add another brick. Every time you replay the past or predict the future instead of being present, you add another lock. You are doing this to yourself, and that's the hardest truth to swallow. But it's also the most liberating, because if you built this prison, you can tear it down. 3 actions. The next time you catch yourself in a mental loop, stop and say out loud, "This is overthinking and it's not helping." Set a timer for 5 minutes to make one decision you've been avoiding. Write down one thought you've been cycling on and consciously choose not to return to it for the rest of the day.
Chapter 2. Why your brain won't shut up. Your brain is trying to protect you. That's what you need to understand first. The relentless noise in your head, the constant analysis, the endless loops, none of this is random. Your brain evolved to keep you alive, not to keep you happy. Its primary function is threat detection. In prehistoric times, this saved your ancestors from predators. In modern times, it's destroying your mental health. The problem is that your brain hasn't updated its software. It still treats every uncertainty like a physical threat. An unanswered text message triggers the same alarm system as a predator in the bush. A job interview activates the same fear response as facing down a tiger. Your amygdala, the ancient part of your brain responsible for survival, cannot distinguish between actual danger and social discomfort. So it sounds the alarm constantly, and you spend your life in a state of perpetual emergency. Overthinking is your brain's attempt to neutralize threats through analysis. If it can predict every outcome, it believes you'll be safe. If it can analyze every angle, it thinks nothing bad can happen. This strategy worked when threats were simple and immediate. Run from the predator, find food, avoid poison. But modern threats are abstract and psychological. Your brain doesn't know how to stop calculating because the threats it perceives never have clear resolutions. Every scenario your brain imagines generates 10 more scenarios. Every solution reveals 3 new problems. The more you think, the more there is to think about. This is the fundamental trap of overthinking. It generates its own fuel. Your brain creates problems that don't exist, then works tirelessly to solve them, then creates new problems in the process. It's an infinite loop with no natural endpoint. And you've been training this loop for years. Every time you engage with an overthinking spiral, you strengthen it. Your brain learns, this is important. We need to keep doing this. The neural pathways get deeper, more automatic, more powerful. What started as occasional worry becomes chronic anxiety. What began as careful consideration becomes debilitating analysis paralysis. You've essentially been teaching your brain that overthinking is the correct response to uncertainty, and now it's become your default mode of operation. The exhaustion you feel is not laziness. You're not tired for no reason. Your brain is running a marathon while your body sits still. The constant vigilance, the perpetual scanning for threats, the endless mental simulation, all of this burns tremendous energy. You wake up tired because your brain never stopped working while you slept. You can't focus during the day because your mental resources are depleted from fighting battles that only exist in your mind. You go to bed exhausted and can't sleep because your brain is still running scenarios about tomorrow. Here's what makes it worse. The modern world provides endless fuel for overthinking. Social media gives you constant opportunities to compare yourself and find evidence that you're failing. The news feeds you an infinite stream of things to worry about. Your phone interrupts you every few minutes, fragmenting your attention and preventing the sustained focus that might actually resolve your thoughts. You're living in an environment specifically designed to keep your threat detection system on high alert, and your brain is responding exactly as it was designed to, by never, ever shutting up. But your brain is not the enemy. It's doing what it thinks is best for you. The problem is that what worked for survival in the ancient world is creating suffering in the modern one. Your brain's protective instincts have become your prison guards, and until you understand this mechanism, you'll keep believing that the anxiety is justified, that the overthinking is necessary, that the mental torture is somehow helping you. It's not. It never was. 3 actions. When you catch yourself spiraling, ask, is this solving anything or am I just cycling? Name the emotion driving your overthinking, fear, shame, or uncertainty, and say it out loud.
Write down one thought loop and commit to not engaging with it for 24 hours.
Chapter 3. The Illusion of Control. You believe that thinking harder will give you control. This is the fundamental delusion that keeps you trapped. If you analyze every angle, you'll make the perfect decision. If you predict every outcome, you'll avoid every mistake. If you prepare for every possibility, nothing will catch you off guard. This is the lie your brain has been selling you, and you've bought it completely. But here's the truth. Life is fundamentally uncontrollable. No amount of thinking will change that. You cannot control how people will respond to you. You cannot control whether your decisions will work out. You cannot control what will happen tomorrow, next week, or next year. The future is inherently uncertain, and your attempts to eliminate that uncertainty through overthinking are not just futile, they're actively harmful. Overthinking gives you the illusion of productivity. You feel like you're doing something important, something necessary, but you're not. You're just spinning your wheels, burning energy, and going nowhere. Real control comes from action, not analysis. Real preparation comes from doing, not planning. Real progress comes from moving forward despite uncertainty, not waiting until you have all the answers. The time you spend overthinking is time you will never get back. Think about that. Every hour spent analyzing a decision that could have been made in 5 minutes is an hour stolen from your life. Every day spent worrying about what might happen is a day you didn't actually live. You're trading the reality of your present for the fantasy of a controlled future, and that future will never arrive because the future is always uncertain, always beyond your control. People who succeed are not smarter than you. They're not more talented. They don't have better information or more resources. What they have is the ability to make decisions without perfect information and move forward despite uncertainty. They understand something you haven't accepted yet. There is no perfect decision. There is no risk-free path. There is only choosing, acting, and adapting. That's it. That's the whole game. You are so afraid of making the wrong choice that you make no choice at all. And in doing so, you choose by default. You choose stagnation. You choose to let opportunities pass you by. You choose to let other people make decisions for you. You choose to live a smaller life than you're capable of, not because you're not capable, but because you're waiting for a level of certainty that will never exist. The illusion of control is seductive because it feels safer than accepting uncertainty. As long as you're thinking, you don't have to risk failure. As long as you're planning, you don't have to face rejection. As long as you're analyzing, you don't have to deal with the messy reality of actually living. But safety is an illusion. Not deciding is just as risky as deciding. Not acting has consequences just as real as acting. The only difference is that you don't see those consequences as clearly because they unfold as missed opportunities rather than visible failures. Here's what you need to accept. You will make wrong decisions. You will make mistakes. Things will not go according to plan. And that's not a problem to be solved through more thinking. That's just life. The question is not how to avoid mistakes. The question is whether you're going to live your life or spend it trapped in your head, trying to calculate the incalculable, trying to control the uncontrollable, trying to eliminate risk from an inherently risky existence. 3 actions. Make one decision today in under 60 seconds that you would normally overthink. Notice when you're trying to predict something unpredictable and stop yourself. And say this sentence out loud when you feel the need for certainty. I cannot control this, and that's okay.
Chapter 4. The stories you tell yourself. Your overthinking is not about reality. It's about the stories you tell yourself about reality. Someone doesn't text you back, and within minutes you've constructed an entire narrative. They're angry at you. They're ignoring you. You said something wrong. You're not important to them. None of this is fact. All of it is fiction, but your brain presents it as truth, and you believe it without question. You live in a world of imagined meanings. Every ambiguous situation becomes a canvas for your worst fears. Your boss is quiet in a meeting, and you decide you're about to be fired. Your partner seems distant, and you conclude they're planning to leave. A friend cancels plans, and you interpret it as rejection. You're not responding to what's actually happening. You're responding to what you've decided it means. And what you decide almost always confirms your deepest insecurities. This is negativity bias in action. Your brain is wired to assume the worst because, in evolutionary terms, it's safer to be paranoid than oblivious. If you assume danger and you're wrong, no harm done. If you assume safety and you're wrong, you're dead. So your brain defaults to catastrophic thinking. It writes horror stories and calls them predictions. It imagines worst-case scenarios and treats them as inevitable outcomes. And you accept these stories as accurate representations of reality. The problem is that these stories become self-fulfilling prophecies. You imagine someone dislikes you, so you act awkward around them, so they pull away, so your story becomes true. You tell yourself you're going to fail, so you don't give full effort, so you fail, so your story is confirmed. You believe you're not good enough, so you don't try for opportunities, so you never succeed, so you continue believing you're not good enough. Your stories don't reflect reality, they create it. Most of your suffering comes from these narratives, not from actual events. The event itself is neutral. Someone canceled plans. The story is, they don't value me. I'm not worth their time. The event is simple. You made a mistake at work. The story is devastating. I'm incompetent. Everyone thinks I'm a failure. I'm gonna lose my job. You're not dealing with reality. You're dealing with the horror movie your mind is producing, and you're treating it like a documentary. You never check if your stories are true. You never ask questions. You never consider alternative explanations. Someone is short with you, and you immediately assume it's about you, never considering they might be having a bad day. Someone doesn't invite you to something, and you decide you're unwanted, never thinking they might have forgotten or assumed you were busy. Your brain grabs the interpretation that fits your existing beliefs about yourself and runs with it. And those beliefs are usually some version of "I'm not enough." Here's what's insidious. You don't realize you're storytelling. The narrative feels like obvious truth. The interpretation feels like the only possible conclusion. You're not aware that you're adding meaning that isn't there, filling in blanks with your insecurities, projecting your fears onto neutral circumstances. You think you're seeing clearly, but you're seeing through a filter of old wounds, past rejections, and learned beliefs about your own inadequacy. Every story you tell yourself about what things mean is shaping the life you live. If you tell yourself you're unlovable, you'll prove it through your behavior. If you tell yourself nothing ever works out, you'll find evidence everywhere. If you tell yourself you're destined to fail, you'll sabotage your own success. Not because these stories are true, but because you believe them so completely that you live as if they are. And living as if something is true tends to make it true. The way out is recognizing when you're in interpretation mode versus observation mode. Observation is, they didn't text back. Interpretation is, they don't care about me. Observation is, my boss gave me feedback. Interpretation is, I'm terrible at my job. The interpretation feels more real than the observation because it's emotional. But emotions are not facts, and the stories your emotions tell are almost always worse than reality. 3 actions. Catch yourself telling a story today and ask, is this fact or interpretation? Write down your worst-case interpretation of the situation, then force yourself to write 3 other possible explanations. Before accepting a negative story about yourself, find one piece of evidence that contradicts it.
Chapter 5: Decision Paralysis and the Weight of Choice. Every decision feels monumental. What to study, who to date, which job to take, where to live. These choices feel like they will define your entire existence. Even small decisions carry impossible weight. What to order in a restaurant, what to wear, what to say in a text message. You're terrified of choosing wrong, so you don't choose at all. You wait. You research, you analyze, you seek more information, more opinions, more certainty. But certainty never comes, so you stay frozen. This is decision paralysis, and it's one of the clearest signs that overthinking has taken over your life. You believe there's a right answer, and if you just think hard enough, you'll find it. But most decisions don't have a right answer. They have options, each with trade-offs. You choose, you commit, and you make it work. That's how life actually operates. But overthinking has convinced you that choosing is dangerous, that mistakes are catastrophic, that you need guarantees before you move. The longer you wait, the more options you see. The more options you see, the harder it becomes to choose. This is the paradox of choice. More options don't make you freer, they make you more paralyzed. You could order the pasta, but what if the pizza is better? You could take this job, but what if another offer comes along? You could date this person, but what if your soulmate is the next person you meet? Every option contains the ghost of every unchosen alternative, and you're haunted by the life you might be missing out on. But here's what you don't see. Not deciding is a decision. Staying in analysis mode is a choice. And that choice has consequences just as real as any active decision you could make. The job offer expires while you're still weighing your options. The relationship possibility disappears while you're still deciding if you're ready. The opportunity closes while you're still gathering information. You think you're avoiding risk by not choosing, but you're actually choosing the risk of regret, the risk of missed chances, the risk of looking back and wondering what could have been. People who move forward in life don't have more certainty than you. They're not smarter. They don't have secret information. What they have is the willingness to choose without perfect knowledge and the confidence that they can handle whatever comes from that choice. They understand that you can't know if a decision is right until you've lived it. You can't predict how things will unfold. You can only choose, act, and adapt, and that's enough. You're so focused on making the right decision that you've forgotten the power of making any decision and then making it right. You commit to a choice and then pour your energy into making it work. You don't waste time second-guessing. You don't spend years wondering if you should have chosen differently. You move forward and deal with reality, not possibility. This is what people who aren't paralyzed by overthinking understand intuitively. The truth is that most decisions don't matter as much as you think they do. The restaurant you choose, the outfit you wear, the exact wording of your email, none of it will define your life. But you're giving these trivial choices the same weight as truly significant ones, and it's exhausting. You're treating everything like it's life or death, and that level of pressure makes even simple tasks feel overwhelming. And when it comes to the decisions that actually do matter, you're often paralyzed for a different reason. You're not really afraid of making the wrong choice. You're afraid of the responsibility that comes with choosing. If you choose and it doesn't work out, you have to own that. If you never choose, you can always say it wasn't your fault. Circumstances were against you. You never got the right opportunity. Staying stuck feels safer than risking visible failure. But every day you spend in analysis is a day stolen from your life. You can't get that time back. The opportunity cost of overthinking is the actual living you didn't do while you were busy thinking about living. And most of what you're agonizing over won't matter in 5 years. You'll barely remember these decisions, but you'll remember the time you wasted, the chances you didn't take, the life you didn't live because you were too afraid to choose. 3 actions. Set a deadline today for one decision you've been overthinking and make the choice when the deadline arrives. Practice the first acceptable option rule. For one minor decision today, choose the first option that meets your minimum criteria. When you feel paralyzed by a decision, ask, what would I choose if I trust in myself to handle whatever comes next?
Chapter 6. The Body Keeps Score. Overthinking doesn't just happen in your mind. It lives in your body. The constant tension in your shoulders that you don't even notice anymore. the knot in your stomach that feels like it's permanent, the tightness in your jaw from clenching unconsciously, the shallow breathing that's become your default. Your body is paying the price for what your mind is doing. Every time you spiral into overthinking, your nervous system responds as if there's a real threat. Your heart rate increases, cortisol floods your system, your muscles tense, your digestion slows. You're in fight or flight mode, except there's nothing to fight and nowhere to flee. The threat exists only in your thoughts, but your body doesn't know that. It responds as if the danger is real and immediate. This is why chronic overthinkers are chronically exhausted. They're not lazy, they're not weak. They're running a psychological marathon every single day while their body sits still. Their nervous system never gets to rest. It's constantly on alert, constantly scanning for threats, constantly preparing for disasters that only exist in their imagination. The physical toll of this is enormous. Headaches, digestive problems, muscle pain, insomnia, weakened immune system, high blood pressure. These aren't random symptoms. They're your body's way of telling you that something is wrong, that you're living in a state of chronic stress, that your mental habits are destroying your physical health. But most people never make the connection. They treat the symptoms, the pain medication, the sleeping pills, the anxiety medication, but they never address the root cause. The disconnection between mind and body is part of the problem. When you overthink, you leave your body entirely. You become pure thought, floating in abstract analysis, completely dissociated from physical reality. Your body becomes just a vehicle for your brain, something to ignore unless it screams loudly enough to get your attention through pain or illness. But your body holds wisdom your mind doesn't have access to. Your gut feelings, your instincts, your intuitive knowing, all of this lives in physical sensation. That sinking feeling in your stomach when something's wrong, the tightness in your chest when you're about to make a mistake, the sense of expansiveness when you're on the right path. These signals are always there, but you've tuned them out completely. You're so busy thinking that you can't feel, and feeling is where actual clarity lives, not in the endless analysis, not in the mental loops, but in the simple physical knowing of yes or no, right or wrong, safe or unsafe. Your body knows things your mind is still trying to figure out, but you can't hear it through all the noise in your head. The irony is that overthinking often starts as an attempt to avoid discomfort. You feel anxious, so you try to think your way out of the anxiety. You feel uncertain, so you try to analyze your way to certainty. But thinking about feelings doesn't resolve them. It amplifies them. The anxiety gets bigger the more attention you give it. The uncertainty becomes more intolerable the more you focus on it. You're trying to solve an emotional problem with a cognitive tool, and it doesn't work. Your body is trying to communicate with you, but you're not listening. The tension is saying you're in threat mode too much. The exhaustion is saying you're spending too much energy on mental activity. The pain is saying something needs to change. But instead of listening, you override these signals. You push through. You ignore the messages and keep thinking, keep analyzing, keep spinning, and your body keeps suffering. This pattern can't continue forever. Eventually, your body will force you to pay attention through illness, through breakdown, through physical symptoms that become impossible to ignore. You can't outthink the body's need for rest, for presence, for actually living in the physical world instead of the abstract world of thought. The question is whether you'll listen before it reaches that point. 3 actions. Right now, scan your body and notice where you're holding tension, then consciously relax those muscles. When you catch yourself overthinking, take 5 slow, deep breaths and focus entirely on the physical sensation. Move your body for 2 minutes. Walk, stretch, shake to interrupt a thought loop. Chapter 7. Breaking the pattern. You cannot think your way out of overthinking. This is the cruel paradox at the heart of everything. The tool that's causing the problem cannot fix the problem. More thinking about overthinking just creates more layers of overthinking. You need a completely different approach. You need to interrupt the pattern, not analyze it to death. Overthinking is a habit, not a personality trait. Your brain has practiced this pattern thousands of times until it became automatic. You don't consciously decide to overthink anymore. A trigger appears, your brain grabs it, and the loop begins before you even realize what's happening. This automaticity makes it feel like something you are rather than something you do. But it's a learned behavior, which means it can be unlearned. The first step is catching it in action. Most of the time, you're 5 minutes into a spiral before you even notice you're doing it. You need to shorten that gap. This requires paying attention to your internal experience in a way you probably haven't before. What triggers your overthinking? What does it feel like when it starts? Where do you feel it in your body? Usually there's a physical sensation that precedes the thoughts, a flutter of anxiety, a tightness in your chest, a sinking feeling in your gut. Your body knows before your mind does. If you can catch that physical signal, you can interrupt the pattern before the mental loop fully engages. This takes practice. You've been on autopilot for so long that waking up to your own patterns feels foreign, but it's the only way out. Once you notice the overthinking, you name it, out loud if possible. I'm overthinking right now. This simple act creates distance between you and the thought. You're no longer inside it, carried away by it. You're observing it. You step back. And in that space between you and the thought, choice becomes possible. Then you redirect. Not by forcing yourself to think about something else, that's just more thinking. You redirect through action or sensation. You move your body. You focus on your breath. You engage your senses. What do you see right now? What sounds do you hear? What can you touch? You ground yourself in physical reality, in the present moment, because overthinking cannot survive in the present. It only exists in past and future, in replay and prediction. Action is the antidote to analysis. Not perfect action, not right action, just any action. Make the call you've been dreading. Send the email you've been rewriting mentally. Have the conversation you've been rehearsing. Start the project you've been planning. Movement breaks paralysis. Doing something even imperfectly breaks the loop of thinking about doing something. Your brain will resist this. It will generate new urgencies, new fears. But what if I'm making a mistake? But I need to think about this more. But I'm not ready. This is the pattern trying to survive. It's been your default for so long that it doesn't want to die. You have to move anyway, through the discomfort, through the resistance, through the voice that says you need more time. Over time, you are retraining your brain. You're teaching it that thinking has a natural limit, that uncertainty is tolerable, that imperfect action is better than perfect analysis, that you can handle whatever comes without needing to prevent everything in advance. These lessons don't sink in after one attempt. You'll need to practice this hundreds of times, maybe thousands. But each time you interrupt the pattern, you weaken it. Each time you choose action over analysis, you build a new pathway. This is not a cure. You don't do this work once and become magically free from overthinking forever. Your brain will always default to overthinking when you're stressed, when you're scared, when you're facing uncertainty. That's its survival programming. But you can build a new default. You can create a stronger habit of presence, of action, of trust. You can make the interruption automatic instead of the spiral. The freedom you're looking for is not in figuring everything out. It's in accepting that you can't figure everything out and moving forward anyway. It's in trusting yourself to handle reality instead of trying to control it through thought. It's in living your life instead of endlessly planning how to live it.
3 actions. Catch yourself overthinking 3 times today, and each time say out loud, "I'm overthinking and I'm choosing to stop." When you notice a mental loop starting, immediately do one physical action. Walk to another room, drink water, touch something. Make one decision today without analyzing the consequences, just to practice moving without certainty.
Chapter 8. Living in the present. Overthinking cannot exist in the present moment. It requires either past or future, something to replay or something to predict. Right now, in this exact second, there's nothing to overthink. There's only what is. And what is always manageable. Even when life is difficult, the present moment itself is handleable. It's when you add yesterday's regrets and tomorrow's fears that everything becomes overwhelming. Most of your suffering is happening in time that doesn't exist. You're not actually dealing with 20 problems simultaneously. You're experiencing one moment right now, and that moment is usually fine. But your mind is everywhere except here. It's replaying last week's conversation, predicting next month's outcomes, imagining scenarios that will never happen. And none of those mental locations are real. Only now is real. You've been living in your imagination for so long that you've forgotten how to be here. You've forgotten that peace only exists in the present, not in having everything figured out, not in controlling every outcome, in simply being with what is right now without adding layers of meaning, prediction, or analysis. This isn't spiritual bypassing. This isn't pretending problems don't exist. Problems exist, but they don't all need to be solved right now, in this moment, in your head. They need to be addressed one at a time through action, and action only happens in the present. The present moment shows you what actually needs to be done right now, not everything that might need to be done eventually, just the next step. And the next step is always clear, it's always small, it's always doable. It's the future steps that overwhelm you, the ones you're trying to figure out in advance, trying to plan for, trying to control. But you can't live future steps right now. You can only take this step, and this step is always simple. Overthinking complicates what is inherently simple. While you've been in your head, your life has been happening without you. Conversations you were physically present for, but mentally absent from. Experiences you went through but didn't actually experience because you were thinking about something else. Moments that could have been meaningful, but weren't because you were somewhere else in your mind. Think about how often you're not where you are. You're with friends, but mentally rehearsing a conversation you need to have later. You're at work, but thinking about a relationship problem. You're spending time with people you care about, but you're not really there. Your body is present, but you're not in it. You're floating somewhere in abstract thought, missing your actual life. The tragedy is that you can never get these moments back. The time you spent thinking about life instead of living it is gone forever. You can't reclaim those hours, those days, those years. They passed while you were trapped in your head, and now they're over. Every moment you spend overthinking is a moment of your life you're sacrificing. And for what? For the illusion of control? For the fantasy that if you just think hard enough, you can eliminate uncertainty? Being present doesn't mean your life becomes problem-free. It means you stop creating additional suffering through mental time travel. The present moment might contain difficulty, but it doesn't contain the added weight of all your past regrets and future fears. It's just this right now, and this is always bearable. It's the mental additions that make it unbearable. Your life is happening in real time, in real space, in physical reality, not in the abstract world of thought. The present moment is where connection happens, where joy happens, where meaning happens. But you can't access any of that while you're stuck in your head. You have to come back. You have to land in your body, in this moment, in what is actually here. This is not easy. Your brain will resist presence because presence means giving up the illusion of control. It means accepting uncertainty. It means being vulnerable to reality as it is rather than as you wish it could be. But presence is also where your actual life is. And if you're not present for your life, what are you doing?
What's the point of all this thinking if you're missing the only thing that's actually real? 3 actions. 3 times today, stop whatever you're doing and name 5 things you can see right now. When you catch yourself replaying the past or predicting the future, bring your attention to your breath for 30 seconds. During one activity today, eating, walking, talking to someone, practice being fully present without letting your mind wander.
Chapter 9. The Cost of Waiting. You're waiting for something before you start living. You're waiting to feel ready, waiting to be sure, waiting for the right moment, the right circumstances, the right feeling. You've convinced yourself that once you have it all figured out, once you're certain, once you feel prepared, then you'll act, then you'll start, then you'll live the life you want. But that moment never comes. This is the final trap of overthinking. It keeps you in a permanent state of preparation. You're always getting ready, but never actually going. You're researching, planning, analyzing, but not doing. And you tell yourself this preparation is necessary, that you're being responsible, that you're just making sure you do things right. But really, you're just afraid. And overthinking is how you avoid admitting that fear to yourself. The life you want is on the other side of action. Not perfect action, not action taken with complete certainty, just action. Imperfect, uncertain, scared action. But you're waiting for the fear to go away before you move. You're waiting to feel confident before you try. You're waiting for conditions to be perfect before you begin. And while you wait, your life is passing. Every day you delay is a day you can't reclaim. Every opportunity you let pass because you weren't ready. Chapter 1. The Prison You Built in Your Own Mind. You are trapped, not by circumstance, not by other people, but by your own thoughts. Every day you wake up and immediately begin the same exhausting process. You replay yesterday's conversations, searching for mistakes you might have made. You imagine tomorrow's scenarios, catastrophizing outcomes that will probably never happen. You analyze, dissect, and torture yourself with questions that have no answers. This is not careful thinking. This is not intelligence. This is a prison, and you are both the architect and the inmate. Overthinking is the silent disease of the modern age. It masquerades as conscientiousness, as being thoughtful, as simply processing. But make no mistake, it is slowly destroying your ability to live. While you're trapped in endless mental loops, your actual life is passing you by. Opportunities expire while you're still weighing the pros and cons. Relationships deteriorate while you're analyzing what someone might have meant by their tone. Moments that could have been meaningful disappear into the void because you were too busy thinking about them instead of experiencing them. Your brain has become your worst enemy. It runs the same scenarios on repeat, like a broken record you can't turn off. You think about the email you need to send, but instead of sending it, you spend an hour rewriting it in your head. You want to have a difficult conversation, but you rehearse it so many times that you never actually have it. You need to make a decision, but you're so terrified of making the wrong choice that you make no choice at all. This is the paralysis of overthinking, and it is costing you everything. The cruelest part is that you believe you're being productive. You feel busy because your mind is constantly working, but this work produces nothing. It's mental masturbation, intense activity with no real result. You're not solving problems, you're creating them. You're not preparing for the future, you're stealing from the present. Every minute spent in your head is a minute stolen from your life, and you will never get those minutes back. Most people don't even realize they're doing it. Overthinking has become so normalized, so ingrained in their daily routine, that it feels like just part of who they are. I'm a worrier, they say, as if it's a personality trait rather than a destructive habit. I just think a lot, they explain, as if there's virtue in drowning in analysis. But there's nothing admirable about living in a constant state of mental warfare with yourself. There's nothing noble about being so trapped in your own head that you can't function in reality. Here's what you need to understand. Your overthinking is not keeping you safe.
It's not preventing disaster. It's not making you more prepared. It's doing the exact opposite. It's keeping you small, keeping you stuck, keeping you from the life you could be living. While you're busy imagining everything that could go wrong, everything that could go right is passing you by. While you're rehearsing conversations in your mind, real connections are waiting to be made. While you're analyzing yourself into paralysis, other people no smarter or more capable than you, are taking action and building the lives you only think about. The prison exists because you keep building it. Every time you choose to ruminate instead of act, you add another brick. Every time you replay the past or predict the future instead of being present, you add another lock. You are doing this to yourself, and that's the hardest truth to swallow, but it's also the most liberating. Because if you built this prison, you can tear it down. 3 actions. The next time you catch yourself in a mental loop, stop and say out loud, "This is overthinking and it's not helping." Set a timer for 5 minutes to make one decision you've been avoiding. Write down one thought you've been cycling on and consciously choose not to return to it for the rest of the day.
You've spent the last 60 minutes confronting uncomfortable truths. Your mind is probably racing right now. Maybe you're already thinking about all the ways this doesn't apply to you. Maybe you're analyzing whether these insights are accurate. Maybe you're planning when you'll start implementing these changes. And if you're doing any of that, you've missed the point entirely. This isn't information to think about. This is a choice you make right now, in this moment, about how you're going to live the rest of your life. You can go back to overthinking. You can return to the comfortable prison of analysis, planning, and preparation that never ends. You can keep telling yourself you're being thoughtful, responsible, careful. You can keep living in your head while your life happens without you. That option is always available. Or you can choose something different. You can choose to interrupt the pattern the next time it starts. You can choose to act despite uncertainty. You can choose to live imperfectly instead of planning perfectly. The war is not over. Your brain will continue to default to overthinking, especially under stress. But now you see it. You understand what's happening. You recognize the trap. And recognition is the beginning of choice. Every time you catch yourself spiraling, you have a decision to make. Engage with the loop or interrupt it. Stay in your head or come back to reality. Think about living or actually live. The choice is yours, but you have to make it repeatedly, moment by moment, for the rest of your life. Your life is happening right now, not tomorrow, not when you figure everything out, right now. And every moment you spend overthinking is a moment you're not living. Stop reading, stop planning, stop preparing. Close this and do one thing you've been overthinking right now. Because nothing changes until you move, and you've already wasted enough time. If you found this audiobook good, please consider subscribing.